The objective of this event was to do evaluation on trauma healing effect of our beneficiaries and build the capacity of the staff, particularly the MAL and the communication staff, on how to facilitate MSC and participatory video using a most significant change methodology. That evaluation team is comprising of PACT staff from Nairobi, MASCO staff, and our partners, APAD and DADO, together with one of the trauma healing TOT facilitator for Karamoja cluster.
Starting this process, we had to set out to go in the field, Kabong Center, where we met on day one participants from the Reformed Warriors. And then on day two, we had spouses of the Reformed Warriors. First thing we did when we got there, we made it deliberate to set our purpose clear. Followed by that, we did, of course, deliberately want to understand that, everyone, around the room, both for first and second day, were pretty comfortable in terms of what we wanted to do with them. And so we did ask them to show that sign of willingness to participate in the process.
The next thing we did after getting the consent is the storytelling session, and we did that using a talking stick, in that the person who is going to tell the story, the one who is going to hold the stick. From our side, the facilitators, there was one who was taking the notes, the detailed story. One was getting the key points. We also had the voice recorder. One was holding the voice recorder, and there was one who was taking photos of the participants.
So after the participants had given their personal stories, we now took them to the next stage, where they themselves still discussed the same stories, brainstormed on them, and to select the story that they thought was the most significant and representing their entire experience. And this was the stage where they were selecting the 5 stories. It is the Reformed Warriors who gave reasons why they were selecting the 5 most significant stories, and they gave the reasons. The reasons were written down, and after that, the reasons were used to come up with the criteria, and we had 5 criteria for selecting the stories. And after that, using the same criteria, the participants now had to score the stories. We had a score of 0, score of 1, and score of 2. 0 not touching on the criteria, and 2 very significant in touching on the criteria. And from there, we scored the stories. We scored all the stories, and the most interesting thing here was that in both the sessions we had ties. On the first day, the 10 stories, we had 5, and from the 5, there was a tie of 2 stories. Now, what the participants had to do was to vote, and they voted for the story they thought was more representative and most significant.
So after the selection of these stories, the participants, especially those whose stories were selected, were taken through the river of life to narrate their story, to give detail of their story to the community, such that other community members are able to internalize and know really and feel in their hearts that this is the most significant story.
After the river of life was done, we added the storyboard. We selected the few pictures. Then after the members had selected the few pictures, giving the reasons as why they selected those few pictures, so they had to put it now into practice. They go out to film them. They act in the way they had understood the pictures in the storyboard. There was a screening, yes, screening of the stories. Then after that, we were able to make the participants are able to consent according to the especially the one who gives the story.
After that, we did data analysis. We collected and organized the data that we have collected from the field at Cotido. We have again planned screening of the community. We went back to the beneficiaries or the communities and the Kabong Peace Ambassadors that we have filmed their stories to carry out community screening. We brought them together, both stakeholders, the community and the Kabong Peace Ambassadors in a hall. We screened the stories and testimonies of the storytellers. The stories now, those are the stories that were selected. After we screened the stories, they have given out their feedback. There was question and answer session. After doing that, we grouped the stakeholders into different groups and to come up with the reasons from the testimonies that they have watched. After coming up with the reasons, they have developed criteria. We verified the criteria from them, and they have scored again the second time for the stories that were screened to them. After selecting the stories, we have asked the consent from the participant and the stakeholders. After doing that, we came back and we did data analysis of the stories and things that we have collected from the screening session. We organized the data into different categories like change enablers, the challenges and recommendations that we want to have as a program.
Here I am handling mainly the key issues, that is the enablers. The enablers here are already the help hand during that time was the peace partners, most especially Dado on this side. Is what we found that helped the community so much in terms of trauma healing. And then the many challenges that we also saw that the community is encountering is that one, there is still continuous animal theft in the side that is being experienced by the community, both the communities from this side. And then of course the community also mentioned the issue of the Turkana as the threat, that because the communities, the Turkana are still in possession of guns, and it is a threat.
One of the key findings we found out was the change that is associated with trauma healing, and the change has contributed to acceptance of the reformed warriors by the community and forgiveness, which cascades from the personal level to the community level. If you look at these charts here, all these green stuff are the changes that were identified during the story cycles, and the change began from the inner cycle. Based on what these participants were trained on, they were able to open up, and when they opened up, they were also able to think about reconciliation. They thought about the things they have been doing in the past. They started saying, we want to forget about them. And this internal change, interpersonal change, has contributed to interpersonal change. We have the change in the family level, and we also have the change in the community level. And this has led to acceptance of these people.
I'm going to give you 5 recommendations that we've had after evaluating trauma healing in the Peace 3 program. And the first recommendation that we came up with is the timing of trauma healing interventions. We thought timing is quite key when you're looking to implement trauma healing in any particular setting. And then the second recommendation that we had was alternative livelihoods. We thought trauma healing on its own is not enough. For meaningful change, there's need to incorporate other supporting systems, such as education, such as access to finance, and also beyond access to finance, we also thought the environment is a key thing that we could also focus on for meaningful change in this particular community. And then the third recommendation that we had was partnerships and collaborations. We thought if the program was to be replicated somewhere else, there's need to partner with other organizations that are providing some of the things that we cannot be able to support, such as education, such as access to finance, and also environmental protection. And the fourth recommendation that we had is women and youth engagement. We thought the women are key champions fighting for peace building in this community. So if this was to be done again, they will be given a lot of priority, and the youth. And the fifth recommendation that we had is providing seed capital. One thing we found out from the community is they have a savings group through the VSLS. So we thought if the program was to be done again, there's need to provide seed capital so that they can be able to scale up their businesses and even trade with other communities with so much ease.
Peace 3 has changed the lives of the youth, especially the peace ambassadors, through trauma healing. They are now focused on education because they talked of replacing the gun with a pen and the books. They even drew some pictures there. They are now focused on business. They are able to do business. They are able to do savings. Through savings and their business, they are able to take their children to school.
Looking at all the components that we looked at yesterday, the contributions of peace building, for us we looked at trauma healing as the main thing that changed the mindset of this youth. But beside that, looking at the sustainability of peace, trauma healing needs to be linked with other livelihood component aspects.
Waking